Every woman has a language she doesn't always express with words. It appears in the way she moves, the parts of herself she allows you to notice, and those moments when her guard seems to lower, but only when she's around you. And when a woman becomes comfortable enough to reveal a side of herself that she normally keeps protected, it can mean something important. It can signal that she's allowing you closer to her trust, her comfort, and a version of herself she doesn't reveal to everyone. Today, I'm going to show you 9 signals that many men completely overlook. And if you learn how to recognize them correctly, you'll start paying attention to something far more meaningful than words alone. Think about the last time you were around a woman and suddenly something felt different. You couldn't quite explain it. The atmosphere between you seemed to shift. Her movements changed. Maybe she stood a little differently or seemed more comfortable than before. And somehow, you felt the change before your mind could put it into words. That doesn't necessarily mean you imagined it. Human beings communicate constantly through body language, facial expressions, posture, distance, and movement. Women don't always verbalize everything they're feeling, especially when the emotion is still developing or when they aren't completely sure what they want to say. Sometimes the body communicates first. When a woman becomes more open and relaxed around you, that can be meaningful. But it's important to understand that no single gesture is absolute proof of attraction. Context matters. Personality matters. And most importantly, patterns matter. Over the next few minutes, I'll walk you through 9 moments that can reveal increasing comfort, openness, and possible attraction. And one of them in particular is often misunderstood, because it requires you to look beyond a single gesture and notice the entire interaction. But here's what almost every man gets wrong about attraction, and it's one of the biggest reasons people misread the signals right in front of them. ##### Signal 1, the neck reveal. Most men assume attraction begins with what a woman says. But often, communication starts long before words. You're talking to her. Maybe it's a relaxed evening. Maybe it's an ordinary afternoon. The conversation is flowing naturally, and somewhere in the middle of it, she reaches up and moves her hair to one side. Suddenly, her neck becomes more visible. Her eyes remain on you. And you notice that something about the interaction feels slightly different. Now, let's be careful about what this actually means. The neck is naturally a vulnerable part of the body, so exposing it can sometimes accompany feelings of relaxation and comfort. When someone feels safe around another person, their body may become less guarded. That doesn't automatically mean, "I want you closer." It can simply mean, "I'm comfortable here." And that distinction is important. If she repeatedly displays relaxed body language around you while maintaining comfortable eye contact, staying engaged in conversation, and continuing to move closer rather than away, then the overall pattern becomes more meaningful. You may have experienced a moment like this before without knowing how to interpret it. The important thing isn't to obsess over the gesture. It's to notice the context surrounding it. And if that first signal caught your attention, stay with me, because the next ones become even more interesting. #### Signal 2, the wrist flash. Many people imagine attraction as something obvious. But human body language is often much quieter than that. Sometimes it appears in something as small as the position of someone's hands. She's telling you a story. Maybe she's explaining something that happened during her day. Her hands are moving naturally as she speaks. Then you notice that her palms are open and her wrists are exposed toward you. She probably isn't consciously thinking about it. And that's exactly why it's worth noticing. Open hands generally communicate less defensiveness than tightly closed or guarded positions. When someone feels comfortable, their hands often become more expressive and relaxed. Compare that with someone sitting across from you with their arms tightly crossed, hands closed, and body turned away. The contrast can be significant. But again, don't turn one gesture into a psychological formula. Some people naturally talk with their hands. Others constantly change positions because they're energetic or expressive. The real clue comes from the combination. Is she facing you? Is she engaged? Is she asking questions? Is she maintaining comfortable eye contact? Does her body appear relaxed? Those details tell you much more than an exposed wrist ever could. The wrist may be part of the picture, but the picture is always bigger than one gesture. Signal 3, the collarbone touch. The first two signals can be subtle. They're often barely noticeable unless you're paying attention. But the next behavior can become more interesting because it sometimes happens when someone is especially aware of how they are presenting themselves. You're deep into a conversation. Everything around you seems less important because both of you are focused on the moment. Then her fingers move toward her collarbone. Maybe she adjusts a necklace. Maybe she lightly touches the area while talking. Maybe she briefly runs her fingers along the neckline of her clothing. Now, this doesn't automatically mean she's inviting physical intimacy. She could simply be adjusting jewelry. She could be fixing her clothing. She could have a nervous habit. But if the gesture appears alongside sustained eye contact, a warm expression, increased engagement, and other signs of comfort, it can become part of a larger pattern. That's the key. Don't interpret the gesture by itself. Look at what happens before it and what happens afterward. Does she continue the conversation? Does she remain close? Does she seem interested in keeping your attention? Does she voluntarily extend the interaction? Those are much stronger indicators. Sometimes attraction isn't communicated through one dramatic action. It's communicated through several small behaviors that consistently point in the same direction. Signal 4, the shoulder drop. Now pay attention, because this is where the idea of comfort becomes even more important. The earlier signals were mainly about openness and relaxation. But now we're looking at a behavior that can appear when someone becomes physically comfortable around you. You're sitting together. The conversation has become more personal. The environment around you has faded into the background. Then she casually removes her jacket or allows it to fall slightly from one shoulder. She doesn't rush.